Hello, so in this video about paragraph writing, we're going to focus on incorporating evidence, but specifically doing so with style in mind and hoping that that evidence can flow in with the rest of your writing. So the goals for this video will be to understand ways to make quotes flow into your writing, understand what paraphrasing means, then also how can we understand when should you use a direct quote and when should you paraphrase. It should be worth noting that in this video we're talking almost exclusively about writing about fiction and that type of evidence incorporation. Just as a reminder, the evidence, the primary focus of it is to support a larger point. Your evidence should flow naturally in with the rest of your writing style. Context can help greatly, and so can paraphrasing, which we'll talk about later in the video. So again, when you're incorporating evidence, it'll look different if you're writing about fiction versus when you're writing about nonfiction. But this video is going to be about fiction, so usually we'll be talking about taking direct quotes or direct examples from the story. Nonfiction, you can get into statistics and quoting in experts, but either way, you're going to need to use paraphrasing and adding context to help the reader out. So a couple of things. When you're incorporating evidence and you want to have some style and flow in it, an important thing to avoid is taking quotes and placing them into your writing. I call this quote bombing. Think of it like this. Your writing is your words. Quotes are somebody else's words. So they're great to help you support your point, but you want your writing, your paragraph or your essay, to be your words. So if you're taking somebody else's words, you can't just place them untreated. You need to take them, but sort of shape them so they fit the rest of your voice. The way to do that is to carve up quotes, to take the most important words, the most important ideas, but to then make them fit the rest of your sentence structures. And then avoid being redundant. That is a tricky thing when you're trying to make a point, but then also to support it with evidence, and we'll talk about that real soon. So it's worth defining terms. So to define paraphrasing, pull this right from dictionary.com, it's to express the meaning of, the writer or a speaker using different words. So basically it's using your own words to express somebody else's ideas. So if you read a book, you're explaining what happened in the book, but using your own words. Now, this is important to achieve greater clarity. So the reason you paraphrase is because you think you can express things in a quicker, more direct way than they were expressed in the book. If you're paraphrasing, you do not need to use quotation marks. Direct quotes are when you pull the author's exact words, and here you do need to use quotation marks. So why then would you ever use direct quotes instead of paraphrasing? Use direct quotes when the author's exact words are important to understanding the information or the context. Also, use direct words when you feel like the author's words are particularly well stated. I mean, that is their job, to put things into words. So sometimes they'll say things that you think it would be impossible to say better. So use the full thing, even if it's a little bit longer. So to avoid redundancy. Let's say we're using the Christmas Carol as our source material. If the point we're making is in the Christmas Carol, Scrooge becomes a good man at the end of the story, Dickens writes that he became as good as the good old city knew. Notice here the point is that he became good, and then your evidence is Dickens says he became good. You're just saying the same thing twice. Combine them. In the Christmas Carol, Scrooge becomes as good as the good old city knew. So that's what you want to think about with redundancy. Instead of saying it and then providing evidence that says it again, just combine them and say it once. Now, if we're looking at the difference between paraphrasing, remember, we want to put things in our own words, but you want to take the key ideas and use those as quotes. So let's say the point that we're trying to support is Scrooge changed completely and became a kind and generous person. We just wrote then Dickens writes, Scrooge was better than his word, he did it all and infinitely more, and to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good as a friend, as good a master, and as good as a man as the good old city knew, or any good old city, town, borough, in the good old world. So if you think about this paragraph wasn't written by the author of the paragraph. It was essentially written by Charles Dickens. So when you're writing, you want your writing to be your words, not the person you're quoting. So again, though, this idea is yours. Scrooge changed completely and became a kind and generous person. So you want evidence that supports that. So take maybe some key quotes that you think best describe that he has changed into a kind and generous person. So, there's some creativity. You can make your own choices here, but for the sake of this, it says that he was true to his word. He was better than his word. He became a second father to Tiny Tim, which was impressive. And down here to say he became the nicest guy in the world, that's an impressive thing to say. So let's cherry pick those few words, then paraphrase the rest, and then that you'll see the flow. It sounds a lot more like the author's voice, which is my voice, rather than Charles Dickens' voice. So Scrooge changed completely and became a kind and generous person. Dickens writes that Scrooge not only lived up to the promise that he would reform his ways, but that he was even better than his word. He became a second father to Tiny Tim, became a good boss, and was a good person that was known in the entire city and even in the good old world. So again, this sounds like me. This sounds like Charles Dickens. But again, these key quotes convey the meaning that we're going for. So that's kind of how you want to mix paraphrasing with direct quotes. There are some times when you're going to think that the author just says something nice and you don't want to just take 3 or 4 words. You want the whole sentence or maybe even longer. So in this instance, I thought Charles Dickens did a good job talking about the power of humor and good-naturedness. So let's say our point is Charles Dickens values individuals who are able to see positivity in any situation. And you want to have some context. So who says it? What's the setting? What's it being said about? When describing Scrooge's well-natured nephew, he writes, "There's nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor." So I just thought that was a nice quote, so we left it whole. So again, as an author, it's up to you how to carve up the quotes that you're pulling, but you want to do so strategically. As long as you're doing that, you'll be in great shape. So in summary, we just want to understand ways to make quotes flow into your writing, understand what paraphrasing is, and then understand how to use a quote and when you should paraphrase. Hope that's helpful. Have a good day.